powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which dropped this morning at 6 a.m. Getting you ready for the Eagles and Jets and all things Eagles. And it is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. I feel like I haven't seen Adam Caplan in quite some time, but he is here, and I am back, and we are together for Football at 4. Adam, what is up, my man?
Good to see you. Yeah, we are virtual. Yeah, we're together virtually. You've got your proper, you get your Brian Prop jersey. You got your guffaw with you.
I am back in the studio. It feels like, and I'm off I'm off tomorrow and then next week, so I won't see you again.
All right. Well, we'll see you for week one, but
yes.
Glad to be here with you. Yeah, I was at the Eagles joint practices. We could obviously get into that for 2 days, and yeah, I've been on the road for 3 weeks. So some of the times when you and I were together weeks ago, I was actually in another part of the country, so it's good to be back in my little studio here.
Yeah, man. So you were at the joint practices. Let's get a couple reviews and some thoughts on what we saw. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball, and of course, everybody wants to know, Jalen Hurts, did he steal the show? Did he show you something in there that has you intrigued?
He did. Look, it's never perfect at quarterback. It doesn't matter who it is. You're not going to play perfect football. The thing that I like that has certainly been noticeable last year at this time, because he had no offseason and no preseason, though he's not getting much of a preseason this year, but nevertheless, not having an offseason in May and June, I think really hurt his progress. And plus, their thought process was never that he'd be in this position to be starting. Let's not forget, this time last year, Carson Wentz was not only the starter. A year before that, they extended his contract for $32 million a year, and here we are 2 years later. He's no longer on the football team, and now Jalen Hurts is the starter. So, but Hurts did some good things. The thing that I like is, Mike, that he's not trying to run all the time. When I say all the time, what would happen is last year's training camp, because he just wasn't there on the offense. If the pocket were to break down, he wouldn't stand there and throw it. He would just run. Or if he didn't like his read after 1.5 progression, he'd go. Not so much this season. Will he run occasionally? Yes. And does he move sometimes when he shouldn't? Yes. But he's more willing to let the play develop. Now, what you saw, and if you were doing stats, you might say he was pretty accurate. But here's the problem. Some of those stats don't mean anything because he would have been sacked at it a bit in a real game. You cannot touch the quarterback in the scrimmage, in these joint practices. So what happens is, I'll give you an example, right? So Fletcher Cox in the Tuesday practice picks up one of their linemen and tosses him. He gets to Zach Wilson. That's a sack in a practice. If you get close to the quarterback, like when it's clear it's a sack, the play definitely will stop. Well, in these practices, they really weren't stopping them. So that would have been a sack in a real game. So that play never would have counted. But what happened was Wilson scrambled, rolled to his right, and threw it for a completion. Well, the fans went crazy. What a great play. But folks, had that been a real game, he would have been sacked. But same thing here. Sometimes with Hurts, clearly sometimes that would not have been a completion. He would have been sacked. So if you're scoring at home, you might have made that completion when it clearly was not. He was sacked. So he's got to get rid of the ball faster sometimes. That's the one issue which happened throughout training camp that I've been aware of.
All right, well, his weapons. Let's take a look at what's going on in that wide receiver room, because it's intriguing, because Quez Watkins, yesterday, Adam, I guess it was yesterday, that Nick Sirianni, when he was asked about the tackle situation, he is saying, well, we haven't decided on that. But then he was asked about it later on, and he said, well, you see who's out there with the ones.
Exactly.
There's, but who's been out there with the ones is Quez Watkins. So are we becoming more and more in tune with he's going to be the guy who's in the slot?
Yeah, well, I would say this. I just would be careful on saying anything's written in stone, particularly at the receiver position. The only thing we absolutely know by fact is Devonta Smith will be a starter. He's going to play the most snaps, if healthy, of all the receivers, most likely. After that, it's going to be a combination of Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, Greg Ward, and probably Travis Fulgham. When I say probably, I do believe he'll make the roster. I know there's a lot of speculation. He was terrific, I'm told, by multiple people. I saw it for myself, but I want to make sure I was right, and I was right. He was great in Tuesday's practice, no matter what you read out there, which is not true. He absolutely was good on Tuesday. Wednesday, I would say nondescript. I didn't think he stood out as much as he did Tuesday, where he made circus catches. He played with a lot of energy and passion. which unfortunately has not always been the case, Mike, is why he gets criticized and why he more or less got demoted. Watkins is over him right now. By the way, it doesn't mean it can't change. Quez Watkins has had, last year, he only had 10 catches. He had maturity issues. We've outlined this. Really, him and John Hightower since, last November on Inside the Birds, really exclusively. We're the first people to report it. Now, Watkins, has a light went on this training camp? Yes. On the field, no question. But he's just got to do it every day. And the thing about Quez Watkins is he flashes every practice. But we have to see, and I've said this often, training camp in the preseason is AAA baseball. The major leagues is when the lights go on in the regular season. I've been fooled before by Nate Brown, Hank Baskett. I'll raise my hand. I got completely fooled by the guy. He was Mr. Training Camp. He was incredible. Once we got to the regular season, he mostly disappeared. But we know this about Quez Watkins. He's explosive. Can he put it all together, whether he's playing inside or outside? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, I know Watkins is interesting. And then Sirianni said yesterday, the interesting part about it is because he goes on, and he said this before, but he said, I don't label a guy X, Z, Y.
True.
So they move these guys all over the place, which means the Fulghams of the world and Greg Ward, they all might have roles. Jeff explained on Wednesday that when you're in the middle of the field, the hash marks, you might need a speed guy. But when you get inside that 20, the speed guy might come off the field and Ward comes on the field.
Yeah, Ward got some screens. You're doing practice. Devonta Smith was also in the red zone area. It's not like he can't do it. He was unreal in one-on-ones. I'm getting sort of like all this feedback from people think I'm out of my mind with the Allen Iverson comparison. Well, the crossover.
Yeah.
Smith had this one move. It's actually on Twitter. You could see it. Some fan put it on Twitter. I guess he was at the practice. Yeah, fans were allowed in at this. There were Eagle fans there and Jet fans. But in one-on-ones, he had this guy, this poor cornerback. He had no idea what to do. He shook him. He made him go left, and Smith went right, and the guy fell. It was just incredible. His releases off the line are the best that I've seen in years. I'm talking maybe even since Terrell Owens. Just really remarkable how talented this kid is, and it's just the beginning.
Yeah, I think we're all excited about, keep in mind, it's a very young group. So you've got Smith, a rookie, and you've got Rieger, a second-year player. You got Watkins, a second-year player. There's really no veteran in this group. Ward would be the veteran of this group. So is that something that you think they're going to look at? Are they going to go in with this young group?
It's funny. Moshe and I have said for months that they need a veteran receiver. They really do. There's no question. And they don't need a guy to play like 40 snaps, 50 snaps. I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but someone like Larry Fitzgerald, who doesn't right now is leaning towards not playing this season. He hasn't made a final decision yet, but he did a recent interview with Jim Gray, and it's sounds like he doesn't want to play football right now. But someone who's of high character, an Anquan Bolden type, who would just show the guys how to do it, because their Eagles are one of only two teams that have a vested veteran on their group in the receiver room, and other than Greg Ward and Devonta Smith in terms of showing the guys how to do it, they just don't have anyone else. So it's we'll see what happens. They don't have very much depth, and it does concern me that they go into the season without this depth. But remember, they've got the initial 53 is Tuesday the 31st, so this is coming up Tuesday. And it would not surprise me at all if they add someone who's been around for a while.
All right. The other area that is interesting is the running back room, and that is Kenny Gainwell, who was the draft pick this year. But you got Boston Scott. You got Jordan Howard. Obviously, Kerryon Johnson's no longer here. But that room behind Miles Sanders, I think, is going to be very intriguing how Nick Sirianni used him. He was asked if he likes to use like a kind of a workhorse back, and it didn't sound like he was gung-ho about that. He just said, hey, if he needs a break, we got other guys. So how do they use those other guys?
Yeah, there's going to be a rotation. Sanders, we know, is the unquestioned first and second down back. That has never been in question really since they drafted him. Last year, the issue with him was, and part of the reason we could blame coaches all we want, but Sanders has got to take some responsibility for the drops. It's really odd how he'll make the spectacular catch on a tougher route, but yet on a screen, he drops it. On an easier, what should be easier, it's never easy, but easier catch, he drops it. But Kenny Gainwell, I may wind up being wrong about this, but I think he'll have in the 40 to 45 plus catch range, 40 to 45-ish. I think he'll average 2.5 to 3 catches a game on a 17-game season. That's based on him playing every game. Now, who knows if he'll play every game if he has an injury or not, but there's just something about him. He catches everything. He's so smooth. So they'll rotate on third down. It'll be some Sanders. It'll be some Boston Scott who's had a good camp. It'll be some of Gainwell. And by the way, I do firmly believe they'll keep 4 backs.
The one interesting guy, as you mentioned, is Gainwell. But Scott, is Gainwell and Scott, are they kind of – and Huntley, I guess, is in the mix, or is he kind of – because he's a return guy. Yeah,
I'd be shocked if Huntley made it. I mean, first of all, punt return-wise, Jalen Reagor better be on punt returns, because he was spectacular at TCU. He was special. That's what made him a first-round pick. He was exceptional as a collegian in that role. Didn't do a lot of it last year. I know he was hurt also. That was part of it. Kickoffs, they could go with a crew. They could go with Watkins and others. And Gainwell, obviously, by the way, Gainwell could be returning kicks too. I don't know why they would keep Huntley. I mean, to keep 5 backs makes no sense to me. I know he's quick, but every once in a while you go, oh, wow, in practice he looked interesting today. But overall, he's not better than the other 4 backs. And again, I just don't see him making it.
All right. I think tight end is very interesting because we all thought Ertz wouldn't be here. Yeah. He's here. What's his role and what's behind those two?
It's funny. Some guy on Twitter said I'm crazy for saying that you should keep Ertz. Let me explain this, because we got some really great feedback on the show that we dropped. We dropped this morning. Let me explain what I said. I thought I explained it well, but let me explain it a little bit more. If you and I were running the show, Mike, I like Zach personally a lot, but I wanted him moved. I would have wanted him moved because you want to play. You don't want to pigeonhole coaches. But I also expected this receiver core to be more developed by now. It's not. They're at the point now, they need just quality pass targets. I always look at offensive pass target group. Give me your pass target group in wide receiver, tight end. Well, as I said earlier, the only dependable guys I think are Ward and Devonta Smith. Fulgham is so up and down. Watkins has come on here, second week of training camp on, but I don't know how dependable he is. Jalen Reagor is a flash player, but he's not consistent. Goddard is terrific, but he's had an injury history. To me, unless you get wowed, unless you get really good value for Ertz, here's the question: are you hurting or are you helping the coaching staff here? That is the question going forward here. I've kind of changed my mind on this. I didn't agree with this even when we started camp. Zach has been so good in camp. He's doing great after the ankle surgery. You wouldn't even know that he had it. He looks great. I just don't know if it's smart unless they get good value for him to trade him.
Is that similar to where you are with Dillard, or how's that whole situation? Because obviously he's an injured guy, and he's still in the mix for left tackle, at least according to Sirianni.
As Sirianni said, we know he basically gave away the answers to the test. I mean, he's just saying this in general. Look, any reporter that's been out there knows who's starting and who's not at left tackle. And Sirianni, I don't know what to believe. I like the guy.
Well, what did you think about what Joe Banner? Joe Banner tweeted that this is not a good look for the coaches when they lose credibility. But do you agree with that?
Wait, I didn't see. What did Joe say?
He tweeted yesterday, Joe Banner, I guess it was to, let me see if I can find it and bring it. But he basically subtweeted back to someone who said what Sirianni had said about how the offensive line is up for grabs. And Joe Banner said this loses credibility. This is how coaches lose credibility.
I don't disagree. It's like, and Joe's a little bit harder edge than I am. I know Joe pretty well, but I'm agreeing with him in this case. First of all, the players know who's starting, okay? Also, let's put it this way. If Dillard has any trade value, right, which he would have because he's a former first-round pick, he's pretty athletic. He's had an up-and-down camp. Let's be honest about it. Mailata has mostly been dominant. He's not been perfect. He's had some snaps. I know in the Pittsburgh game there were some snaps he could have been better. But let's call it like it is, okay? Mailata's a starting left tackle. I said this. I remember saying to Moshe on our show 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, I said, I'll make the decision for him. I know they haven't announced it. Mailata's starting. The competition's over. It was over weeks ago. So Sirianni can say what he wants, but we know that if there's any trade to be made here, saying that Dillard's already lost a job doesn't help.
Right, so there it is. Elliot Shore-Parks tweeted, Nick Sirianni says, left tackle position isn't decided between Mailata and Dillard. Banner says, coaches lose credibility when they talk like this. My guess is must be hoping to trade him.
Here you go. See, Joe and I would agree. I didn't know that. Joe tweets so much, I don't keep up with all of it.
Yes, he jumped right in there. But the whole lose credibility, I feel like you said, I have to imagine these guys behind closed doors have been told, you're the starter, don't worry, I have to go out there and keep this thing going about competition.
But Mike, they don't need to tell him. They know. It's not like they have. It's like with Jalen Hurts. He knows he's a starter. He's taking all the ones.
Right.
I mean, I laughed at this. I get Sirianni with this competition thing. You and I have talked about this on your show really since February. It's really true. He's like this with his coaches. You're texting him about playing miniature golfers. I don't know what he does. Tennis. I don't know what he does, but he's super crazy with the competition. That's fine. But we know that the competition, certain positions, it was long been over.
Yeah. Defensively, that defensive line, we heard good things about at Jets practice. What did you see?
Oh, my gosh. Tuesday, Mike. I mean, I mentioned earlier how Fletcher Cox just picked up the guard and just tossed him. It's funny. When Fletcher Cox brings it, no one could stop him. It's just a matter of when he wants to bring it. He just doesn't always bring it. That's the knock on him. But he's an incredible football player. Hargrave and Josh Sweat. Barnett's not practicing this week due to the shoulder, but Josh Sweat also. Long arms matters, folks. When you've got 34.5-inch arms, you've got an advantage. If the left tackle's got an inch or so shorter, he got into the lineman, the tackle, and he moved him. He was great. I think Tuesday they were way better than Wednesday. But talking to someone from the Eagles, it was a really spirited practice, and it was hot. It was in the mid-90s and humid. And it got physical. In fact, it was one of the most physical joint practices, Mike, I've seen in 20 years. I got to tell you, there were some skirmishes, but they're not just to tackle, but there's some guys taking to the ground. I know that wasn't supposed to be the case, but it was really physical. It was good to see that.
I like the fact, now we can talk about this real quick, is we've hit on this a lot this week, the difference between these joint practices and the preseason games. It seems that the coaches are valuing these joint practices more.
And Sirianni said, although I don't think it applied to everybody because not everyone's playing that many games, but I think he said, if you look at all the joint practices, we're actually having 7 games over 3 weeks. But of course, Hurts didn't play last week, so it doesn't apply to him. But I get what he means, because if you're doing, remember now, they practice was over Wednesday at noon Eastern, and just over 2 days later, you're going to play against the Jets. They've been there, by the way, I'm told since Monday night. They're going to be, a lot of these guys are going to be tired. So I don't, any of the starters if the starters play at all, I don't expect to be for very long, because you just can't wear these guys down. It'll be fascinating to see, though. One thing before we get out of here, folks, when you watch tomorrow night, the guys to watch, because these guys are fighting for roster spots. Tui Pelotu, the D tackle, Jerron Jackson, number 75, Raekwon Williams, number 61, Elijah Riley, a safety. More about him when we put our 53-man roster. We're going to drop Monday morning. Elijah Riley, number 39, Graylin Arnold, number 37. Some of these backup linemen, Suapeta, 78. LaRaven Clark. Now, I would think he would make it. They gave him a little bit of money, guaranteed money, but I don't know that he plays, but he did work this week in team drills. That was a little bit of a surprise to me. He was dressed. But some of these lower-end guys, these are the guys that the scouts want to see and the personnel people on tape after Friday's game.
Last one. Anthony Harris is joining me at 5 tonight. He was a free agent signing. Yeah. What has he kind of added to this defense so far?
Great. It's funny you mentioned him, because we barely talked about him because he's been so good, we're told. It's really shame on us for not talking about him and Eric Wilson, but really Anthony Harris, leader, knows the defense cold, high character guy. He's going to be really good in this game. He's played it. He's dominated in it. This is a pretty good signing, and they got a good deal with him. So he's done a good job. We haven't heard a lot about the safeties because of Wallace's injury, and they just don't have a lot of guys you could count on. And Roddy McLeod obviously hasn't practiced yet. We don't know when he's going to be ready.
Right.
But absolutely, Harris has stood out.
He's Adam Caplan. This is Football at 4, the Inside the Birds podcast. It is dropped right now. Check it out, Inside the Birds, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and the whole 9 yards. Adam Caplan, Jeff Mosher, they are part of Football at 4. Adam, I will see you soon, my friend.
Sounds good, guys.
All right, Adam Caplan here on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.